All right. We are live with another episode of the Keeg Talks. It's that show brought to you by the Keeg where we talk about a different topic, whenever we can. I'd like to say every week, but it's not always every week. At the height of the Keeg Talks, it was like an every week podcast. But this depends on whether there's something worth talking about. And there is, because in July, the new Superman movie comes out. And we are here to talk about Superman from a very... it's called Superman 101. This is the Keeg Talks Superman 101. So if you are new to Superman, this is the podcast episode for you to listen into. And if you're an old fan, maybe you're gonna, hear some things you don't know already, or rediscover your passion for Superman, or maybe you're coming into this not liking Superman. Maybe just by getting this beginner entry-level understanding of the character, maybe you fall in love with him and his world that he belongs to, and maybe you go out and see the movie and you join the club. I'm your host, Dimithri Pereira. If you're watching us live, you're watching us on twitch.tv/The Keeg Show, or as of recently, more importantly, youtube.com/The Keeg Show. That's where we're drawing the chat from. Shout out to Joshua Ling in our chat right now. I know Josh was pointing out that, our guest today is a draw, I think. At least it drew Josh to the chat. So let me introduce her. We got Maggie, aka Vegan Superkick, back on the show. Maggie, what's up?
Hi, it's been a really long time
It has.
since we've done one of these together, but I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you back. You used to be a regular on Comic Talk. We were talking like new releases. It's very inside baseball in a way. Like, you got to keep up to date. You got to do all that stuff. And Comic Talk, it's that show we do on Thursdays. I think it's in stark contrast to this episode right here. Is that the vibe you're getting?
Yeah. I'm like a little nervous because I feel like I didn't do all my homework. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus like just reading new stuff every week. But because I'm like over here writing down, I'm like, okay, let's see if I remember this. But I'm excited. I'm excited to have like one focal thing to talk about.
Yeah. I think what happens with comics and comic related things is it's really tough for people to keep up to date with like a medium that's been around for like 80 to 100 years, right? A character like Superman, especially being like the first superhero. Like, he's crowned as the first superhero. You could argue that the pulp heroes like Zorro and all that stuff were like superheroes, but Superman is considered the first superhero. This episode, I mean, it's not supposed to be an encyclopedia. This is about like our experiences, the character. There will be facts being thrown out, but like, I'm super interested in Superman, and then your experience with Superman, because do you have a fairly unique experience with Superman?
I feel like, in contrast to you being like a lifelong comic book reader, and then me getting into comics, like, I don't know, less than 10 years ago at this point, Superman was the one that I really put off until like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So I feel like our perspectives are going to be very different. And I feel like they have been in the past, like talking about Comic Talk stuff.
Yeah.
So going into this, I was really excited to see like what we were gonna talk about and recommend. I mean, you know what I'm gonna recommend, but like whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. I think so.
I like this Superman, again, being such an old superhero. Like, we could do a whole series of podcasts about Superman, whatever. And I think that the goal for this episode is like, drawing our experiences with this this character and the world that he inhabits. The new movie comes out July something. I forget what I literally just looked it up. July 11th.
Yeah.
The new movie comes out, and I'm super excited for it. And I think that the movie isn't supposed to be just for comic book readers. It's supposed to bring everybody together to like fall back in love with Superman or fall in love with him for the first time. Are you excited for the movie?
I'm very excited for the movie. Yes. I think it's exactly, even just from the trailers. And like, I'm a big fan of James Gunn. I think he's a great director, great writer. Um, I can tell just from the trailers and the casting and every like the whole vibe, this is what I'm gonna want out of a Superman movie,
Right.
you know. Yeah.
What what do you want out of a Superman movie? Can you
I
sum that
want
up?
I want a Superman who is empathetic and shows emotion and has a good time. Um, and is not just like one linear, monochromatic character like he has been portrayed in the past. I'm not gonna say it,
Yeah.
but I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like there have been a bunch of Superman movies, over the how like since 76, I think was the first one. And like they all have like a, a, a different vibe. They're all a little bit different. Everybody has their favorite.
Hmm.
Um, but I think Superman kind of plays second fiddle to Batman in like the cultural zeitgeist. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think people in their minds make him as serious of a character as Batman. You know
Mm,
what I mean?
yeah.
So, but I don't really read him that way.
How do you read them?
You know, I don't like Batman.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
also, I mean, as a Superman fan, as a Batman fan, I don't like all interpretations, all adaptations
yeah.
of Batman. Also,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
I don't know. I just read him with more personality, I think.
Batman or Superman?
A Superman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about Batman with more personality, like you just like sass him up a little bit.
He
There,
could use a little sassing up, I think,
there are
personally.
some key sassy Batman moments,
Yeah. All right.
but
I need to give him a chance. We'll talk. That's another time.
yeah, that's for Batman 101, I guess.
I'll be
Um,
I'll be watching that one though.
what Batman 101?
Your Batman 101.
That's
Yeah.
fair. Um, with I'm trying to like pull up. I have some like screenshots of the trailer that I want to like throw in. Um, well, shout out to Joshua Ling in our chat. Shout out to the Vinyl Casket in our chat. Shout out to Claude Curly Insane Guy in our chat. Joshua Ling says, give me empathetic, kind Superman."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't want to hinge all the world's problems on a film, but I think that it's very meta in a way that I think that the culture needs this movie to be a win.
Hmm. I agree. Yes. I because we'll never hear the end of it if it's not. But like I think we need a nice, fresh, clean slate Superman movie right now.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
a hero you can believe in, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Otherwise, what's on the flip side? And I like The Boys TV show. I hate The Boys comic. I will consistently say
Mm.
the worst piece of garbage that I've ever read. I actively say burn all your copies, but that's the one comic I ever say that to. Any other comic that's even not my taste, I'm not hating on it.
Right.
The Boys comic. But the Boys show is cool to, as long as you look at it in the way that it's intended. Homelander is horrible and he
Hmm.
sucks. And
Yeah.
that's part of his character. And I don't like Superman that could be mistaken for Homelander.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Homelander adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um you have you seen all the trailers for the new movie coming out?
I think so.
Okay.
I would like to hope that I have.
What stands out most about the new movie? Like why would this be any different than anything that's come in the past?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. It's kind of hard to judge that based off of just a trailer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I would love to circle back after the movie and be like, okay, this is what makes it different for me.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure. There's something about the way that like David Corenswet just like he's very convincing. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Like
you could
even
say
just for
cutie
a
pie.
trailer.
You could say cutie pie.
Is a cutie pie. Yeah, he is really precious. But like even just the way in the trailer that he like differentiates Clark and Superman. You're like, okay, like this guy gets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So yeah, that is really exciting. I'm also really excited to see Crypto.
I love Crypto.
Talk about a cutie patootie.
I love I
Yeah,
love Crypto so much. I have a
yeah.
slideshow that's playing right now. Again, if you're watching us live, youtube.com/the Keeg Show or twitch.tv/the Keeg Show. Like, comment, subscribe, follow. Let us know you're out there. If you're in the chat, say hi. If you're listening to the podcast, this is after the fact. The audio podcast gets released on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., etc. So wherever you're at, like, comment, subscribe, follow. If you're listening to the podcast, can't really see the stuff that I'm playing, but do what you can. Crypto being Superman's dog. I feel like for this episode, I really have to like double down on what if somebody comes in watching this Superman 101 episode and they're like, I don't know what crypto is. Cryptocurrency,
Right.
crypto.com
Yeah.
arena in
Yeah.
LA, which as a SoCal guy, I hate that name. I hate the renaming of the Staples Center to crypto.com arena or whatever. I hate it so much. But if it
Yeah.
was Crypto
True.
the Super Dog, sure.
Let's do it. Yeah. We are getting a little sidetracked, nerding out a little bit.
We are.
Okay.
Uh, here's the question. What did you think about Superman growing up? Because I don't want to put you on the spot, but like everybody has like this like thing about Superman growing up. For me, I grew up in the 90s. So I was watching a lot of cartoons, any cartoons I could watch. I was watching, like, sure, Sailor Moon at like 7 a.m. in the morning before school. Sure,
Yeah.
wasn't my favorite, but it was something I was like any cartoon I was watching. And the
Yeah.
Superman the Animated Series was out, and I fell in love with that character. I loved the crossover with Batman. I was obviously watching Batman. And I still say to this day, like, Superman the Animated Series is like my Superman in my head. Um, but a lot of kids around used to say he was boring. A lot of people around, they would either say he was boring or they would say he's too powerful. And I think that
Hmm.
those are like the two things that people say.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I didn't really, you know, I too grew up in the 90s, but I,
Really, I thought you
that
were like a Gen Alpha, Gen Z,
don't play. I'm 34. Aren't we like the same age?
Of course I am. I'm I'm 34. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So I grew up in the 90s too. But I was probably consuming different media, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, I didn't really have any feelings about Superman. Like he was around, he was a guy, he was a superhero, like I always thought that stuff was kind of cool, but like I never really put much stock into it. Um, but when I grew up and started getting more into like nerd culture and like comic book spaces and stuff like that, it definitely was that overwhelming majority of people who were like, "Oh, he's just a Boy Scout. He's too strong, blah 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 blah." Exactly what you were just saying. And I kind of believed it. You know what I mean? Like I for sure, like you can go back, you and I have had this conversation on like my TikTok comments and
Yeah.
stuff before. Like I didn't really care about it. I thought he was
Right.
boring. I have no interest in learning about this guy. Um, but I have completely changed my mind on that and I eat my words any chance I get. Like I feel bad that I felt that way about him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I'm.
didn't think there was going to be anything about Superman that I could relate to.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest. Yeah, it's tough. I think. Look, how do we put this? We are both comic book fans, but comic books are like one medium of these stories. And
Mm.
when you adapt these stories to like a different medium, then you're essentially at the mercy of whoever's adapting it, right? So, people like people that are Spider-Man fans can be a fan of the comics and they just so happen to get the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1 that they loved so much and like good for them. But then there's
Yeah.
characters like Superman which really like the adaptation hinges on like, yeah, what's your take on Superman? What's your take on Batman for Batman movies, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that Superman adaptations haven't always had the best,
Yeah.
output, you know?
Well, I think, like you said, because he's been around for so long, um, so many people have had the chance to write him and to portray him however I feel like we put ourselves a lot in the characters that we love and look up to.
Hmm.
And someone who's been around for that long and has been in as many situations as Superman has, you're gonna get adaptations that are just like, what? You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
you have characters who have not been around as long, who have been written by less people, who are consistently better written, for lack of a better word, uh, because there's less of that character. Like there's less of like this huge thing that you have to describe.
Right.
But that's what Superman is, you know?
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
for anyone out there who doesn't know, 1938 was the first Superman appearance, right?
Mm.
In Action Comics, and he was a lot different than how he is now. Um, I don't recommend, if anyone's getting into comics, into Superman comics, you don't need to read that. That's kind of the thing about comic books. Like, you don't need to start from issue one. People think you do. And like,
Hmm.
if you want to be a comic book historian, sure. If you want to be, really into the lore, some lore that doesn't matter, sure, start with number one. But like, if you're getting into like such characters like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, even who came out 30 years after, Superman did, you don't need to start at issue number one. You just need to read like their greatest hits and all that stuff, right? If it even comes down to comics, you can be a fan of Superman and not, read a comic. Sure.
Yeah,
You know.
true.
I am a fan of saying that like comics are for everyone. You will find a comic that works for you. But like when it comes to Superman adaptations, yeah, I grew up on the cartoon. Did you ever watch Smallville?
No, I never did.
I would have thought like I would have
I
like
know.
you would have been a Smallville girly.
I know. I hear nothing but good things about it, but I never watched it.
There are bad things about it. But
Really?
like, yeah, I mean it is a product of its time.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I hear from other people. They're just like, yeah, but it is well loved, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
10 seasons
10?
of it's 10 seasons of edging. That's what it is. It's 10 seasons of edging where because
Like
Tom
literally
Welling
or
uh hmm I mean as far as the Superman character is concerned cuz
okay.
for 10 seasons he's Clark and he's not
Oh,
Superman. And they bring up his logo and like later they'll put the logo on his chest, but they won't give him a cape. They won't give him tights. He wears like a long black trench coat as he like saves Metropolis sometimes. He doesn't go by Superman until like the final episode. Like they introduce characters that will one day be important to him when he is Superman. There's
that
so
sounds
many
kind of awful.
cameos. What?
That sounds kind of awful.
Again, it was a product of its time. It had a lot of
Yeah.
CW drama.
Gotcha.
And it was just like, oh, you'll believe a man will fly one day.
Right.
Like, as opposed to the original movie with Christopher Reeve, you'll believe a man who can fly. One day we'll get to it, right? It's Smallville's kind of motto. But I'm surprised he didn't get into it.
No, I mean, 10 seasons is a lot to commit to.
Yeah, don't watch
It's
it
like,
now. I don't recommend watching it now.
okay. I was gonna
It's
say, I don't think I'm going to.
Yeah, it's really dated. Sure, it's really cringy at times. Sure,
Yeah.
like I think it's more for like a rewatch or like watch the greatest hits. I don't know if anyone out there in the comments wants to stand up for Smallville. Smallville is such an integral part of me, sure, my heart, but I don't want to go back to rewatch it. I'm just like I'll leave it in the past. It was formative. Um, it's a real big part of like superhero media though. Like
Hmm.
that and Heroes, which was not DC or Marvel, it was like NBC's superhero sort of thing before superhero TV was cool. Those two,
Yeah.
Smallville and Heroes, I think, like ushered us into the new age of like superhero media and TV.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have it without it, but um, Curly Insane Guy says it's okay to change opinions when you learn new information or gain a new appreciation for something. Character growth. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope that people who think Superman is boring change their mind.
Yeah, because he's
You know?
not.
Yeah. I don't
Here to
think he
say.
is.
No, I don't think.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I said no, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I'd hang out with Clark.
Here's the thing: you would hang out with
Okay.
Clark knowing he's Superman, or knowing he's like not knowing he's Superman, just Clark, like bumbling or slightly bumbling Clark.
Yeah, probably.
Is it because it's David Cornsweat?
Well, yes, but I just mean in general.
Yeah.
In general, yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'd be friends with Clark. So
It's funny you say that because there is an episode of Superman and Lois, which is supremely underrated 3-season, 4-season TV show. It's so good.
yeah,
There is an episode because it takes place in like it's an adaptation, sure, but it is kind of like an alternate universe where they all the things that you know as like Superman stuff like aren't necessarily the case in it. Like it does its own thing. They give him kids that he never had in the comics. They, there's a whole episode which is a flashback, and it's really sad, where Jimmy Olsen, which I love that he's in this movie, this upcoming movie, and like he is a staple of Superman. Jimmy Olsen is like Superman's best friend. Like he's this redhead kid. He's the photographer. He takes pictures of Superman. He goes on the scene with like Lois Lane. Like he's her photographer too. In Superman and Lois, there's a flashback episode where Jimmy, like it starts off with a Jimmy and Clark best friendship in the Daily Planet. And Clark keeps canceling on Jimmy. Like he joins the softball team, but he can't make it to the game that they need to do. Like it sets it up that like they're going to be best friends, and it pulls the rug out from underneath, and it literally becomes the fact that like Jimmy and Clark never become best friends in this show because Clark can't be counted on as a friend.
damn,
Because he has to be Superman. And it's like
right.
really bittersweet. It's so sad because like the Jimmy Clark friendship that we know and love doesn't exist in that show, but for a reason.
Yeah. Oh, that bums me out.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
gives me Matt Murdock and Foggy. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
imagine an adaptation of Daredevil where like they met in law school and they didn't become friends.
Hate it. I won't do
sad.
that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not interested.
I'll tell you one thing: Superman and Lois is so good though. Like,
Yeah, that's the one that everybody tries to convince me to watch. I haven't.
that's
but
the one
I
worth
would.
watching.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil anything, because it's also Superman 101.
Just spoil it. It's okay. Do it.
If anyone's listening to this and they don't want to be spoiled about Superman and Lois, go forward like 30 seconds. In Superman and Lois in like the last season, his identity goes public. And everybody in Smallville kind of already like was starting to pick up on things because he lives in Smallville. And that's like the show. And his identity goes public, and it goes public to the world. And Jimmy comes back later and becomes his friend because like now he understands why he didn't make it, why he couldn't be counted on, that sort of thing. So
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I'll sleep better now. No.
It's worth watching, trust me.
Okay.
So Joshua Ling in the chat says, I loved watching Smallville when it was airing, but I don't know if I could do a rewatch. But I remember enjoying seeing the things that made Clark become Superman. And Claude says it doesn't reach the heights of 2002's Birds of Prey. There was a short-lived Birds of Prey show that came out like the second season of Smallville. It wasn't related, and it was really bad. But I watched every episode.
Yeah. You were there.
I was there. I had to keep watching it. Claude says, totally joking about Birds of Prey. 2002's Birds of Prey. Let's rewind it to the beginning, because I know also that we have comic book recommendations that like things that stand out, quintessential stuff. I don't know if anyone, I don't want to, I think this is still a thing. I have an Amazon shop for the Keeg, and mostly you don't have to get it from there, but like I use it also as like recommendations. So I've created a Superman list. If anyone wants to look through the Amazon shop, and if you're gonna buy comics and you're gonna anyways pay that price on Amazon, it gives back to the Keeg just a little bit. But Amazon.com/shop/the Keeg Show. I have some recommendations of like different reading lists and whatnot. You could use it just for a reading list, or you could get your comics from there and give back to the show. Superman, I mean, let's rewind. Superman essentially is the lone son of Krypton. His planet explodes when he's a baby, essentially, right? Different adaptations kind of do it in different ways, but most of them have it that he's sent off world as a baby by his parents as like sort of like a Moses allegory. He's sent down the river to Earth, where Jonathan and Martha find him as a baby and raise him in like small town Kansas. Does that resonate with you?
Not in the slightest, but I think it's a great story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Does it need to be our lives to be able to be like interesting to read? Not so much.
Not at all. No.
Did that ever stand out to you as like a new Superman fan? Like, what does that matter?
What, that he was sent off world by his parents?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like as a parent myself, it does, because I don't know. I mean, I guess if my planet were exploding and I could put my child on a rocket ship to a safer planet, yeah, I probably would. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess as a parent, maybe it does resonate a little bit, like backtracking there. But
You wouldn't be like Billy Zane on the Titanic and just try to get the lifeboat for yourself?
no.
Just jump into that ship and then Earth explodes and you're like, you gotta save yourself. Vegan super cake must live on.
No. Could you imagine? I've lived my life. I've seen enough.
Yeah.
Like if he can go on and do something great, if he can go on and become Superman, let him.
Yeah.
I'm done.
That's
You know what
fair.
yeah. So yeah, I guess maybe that part of the story does kind of resonate, but you know.
There are some adaptations that make it very cold and like I don't resonate with it. But you know what movie is so sad that like you won't guess what movie I'm gonna say, but it was a theatrically released movie and it had Superman's origin in it, and it makes me cry.
What is it?
The League of Super Pets, the DC League of Super Pets with Crypto and like
Oh yeah,
Crypto's voiced by The Rock.
yeah.
Have you seen it?
It's a great movie.
It's so good.
Loved it. Yeah.
But the beginning scene where like
Yes. Oh my
yeah,
God.
Jor-El and Lara put baby Superman in the pod, and Crypto is not in the pod, and Crypto
Don't they put him in
runs.
another one?
What's up?
No, oh yeah, that's right. He runs and like gets in there.
He jumps in, which makes me also wonder like why couldn't they just do that in the first place? But like,
Yeah.
why are you leaving Crypto behind? But okay, fine. But then the spaceship with baby Clark and baby Crypto go off as the planet explodes, which I mean is canon for that movie, but it's so beautiful. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
That is a good movie. We
Yeah.
liked it a lot.
Um,
I also think too that like you kind of joked about like a Moses allegory, but like I imagine, I mean, I'm from here, but I imagine like people who are immigrants or like have family that have immigrated to another country from another country, like that would be a story that would resonate. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Leaving an off place to find a better life somewhere else, you know?
That's what people, at least who look past the first couple layers of Superman, can like figure out. Some people don't like to look past the first couple layers, if
Right.
not just the first layer.
Yep.
Some people look at Superman and they wonder, oh, what I would do with X-ray vision.
Right.
It's like, okay, I guess not really,
Right.
but whatever.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like, yeah, Superman, Again, it also depends on the adaptation on whether they really lean into it or not. But Superman is a refugee. He's also he's undocumented. Like
Yeah.
the comics try to make sense of it in different ways. Smallville does a twist on it that like makes it like work, but essentially like when Clark like in real life, I don't think you can discover a baby in a cornfield and like just raise it and like everything's fine.
Oh, yeah. I think there would be some questions for sure. I mean, we need birth certificates and, you can't
Yeah.
go to school if you're just an alien baby.
Yeah.
You know
You
what I
know,
mean? But
you need some sort of documentation. And so Clark Kent in Smallville, Lex Luthor's dad, and I mean, we'll get to Superman's villains. Superman's villains and Superman supporting cast, I think, are two things that I do want to talk about. But yeah, we're even in the origin story, like Lex Luthor's dad knows like this prophecy in Smallville. This is Smallville's continuity. There's this prophecy that Superman will come to Earth, something or another. And like Lex Luthor's dad's part of this like group that like thinks that. And so he finds the Kents and the baby, and being the rich billionaire that he is, he pulls the strings and makes the documentation work.
okay. Okay. That makes sense. That's
But
kind of cool.
yeah, it's different for different different adaptations. Claude says, "Who among us hasn't raised an extraterrestrial cornfield baby?"
I'm still waiting on mine to show up, but no, that's interesting. I never really gave that part any thought,
Yeah.
but also I don't really have an issue with that, but whatever.
There's an episode of Smallville that people keep posting is when Ma Kent, which again is very out of character. It's Ma Kent in the Smallville show, but out of character for most of her adaptations. There's an episode about like an undocumented immigrant, and she says, "Clark, we have to abide by the law. We have to turn him in." And Clark is like you turned me in,
Right? He's
and it's
like,
like,
man, let's pause. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, getting into the nitty gritty about Superman and all that stuff and comics in general. But anyway, that's the basic origins. He comes from this, he's the last son of Krypton. Most of the time, Crypto doesn't exist in adaptations, the super dog. And then when he does exist, he's essentially sent on a different rocket ship, not necessarily the same one. Yeah. Same goes with any other superpowered person. There's a whole backstory with Supergirl that is in some adaptations of Superman, some not.
Yeah.
But Supergirl is sometimes sent afterwards or at the same time, different ship. She gets sent off course or goes to the Phantom Zone or whatever. It depends on the adaptation. Yeah. All adaptations being equal, you to tell the story that you want to tell. But she will be in the new movie universe.
I know.
Played by Millie Alcock.
I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not naysaying it. I'm interested. I'm also not a Game of Thrones fan, so I don't know her.
Oh, I'm not either.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Okay. But I am excited for it.
Yeah. Because she's getting her own movie.
Mm-hmm.
Based off of the acclaimed miniseries Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow.
Which is great.
Have you read it?
Love it. Yeah.
I just read it front to back. I was on a trip and I took 4 comics with me, and I only really got to read one, and that was Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Yeah, it's great. I think I read it in like a night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My neck hurt after I got done with it. It's not a short read. It's not a long read, but it's not a short read.
Yeah, it's very wordy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's good.
Yeah. What was I saying? Oh, how do you feel about Superman's villains? Because here's the biggest thing is like when people talk Superman, they're constantly saying he's overpowered. What's the big deal? His villains are boring, or they don't know who his villains are. And like what could pose a problem to Superman? Like, Are these all questions that you used to think?
Um,
I used to think some of those. Sure.
yeah, I was gonna say like yes and no. I feel like there are still a lot of Superman villains I'm not like wildly knowledgeable on. I feel like for some reason I'm always attracted to runs where like Lex is heavily involved.
Uh-huh.
Um, so like I'm trying to think of yeah, I guess I just don't know enough about some of his villains in
Yeah.
particular to like have an opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do think that like I think Lex is an interesting character. Um, my Basset Hound is coming up here. I do think that he is an interesting character. I like reading him because he's a scary billionaire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something a little too realistic about that one, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Lex, and I don't fault anyone for not knowing Superman's villains, mostly because first thing, we have a limited amount of Superman movies
Yeah.
or adaptations, and they all tend to just put Lex front and center.
Yeah.
And then secondary, what Superman adaptations tend to do, and comic book adaptations do it just in general, they will try to find a villain with the same powers as the hero and just have them power to power, same thing, right?
Yeah.
So which ends up happening is like, yeah, Lex is number one, and then like pick your Superman superpowered villain, General Zod, Bizarro. I mean, that's pretty much General Zod. It's like
Right. Yeah.
Lex Luthor, General Zod. But like Superman has a huge stable of villains that rarely, if ever, get touched on like TV or movie adaptations.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Your favorite is Lex, though.
I would think so. Yeah. That seems kind of like vanilla of an answer, but like I do find him to be interesting.
Yeah,
I like a
I,
little evil bald guy.
I don't blame you. I don't blame anyone for liking Lex. Sure, he's the most exposed, but also just the idea that a bald billionaire guy, he's just money and smarts,
Yeah.
can be a threat to Superman.
Exactly. I think it's kind of how I feel about like Kingpin in the Marvel universe. Like he's so it's such a tangible thing like in our world that it's like ooh, like it doesn't really matter if you have any superpowers or not, but like if you have a shitload of money like and you have evil intentions,
There's a
you're
lot you could
scary.
do. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how I feel about him. I wouldn't say that I like him, but I like reading him, you
yeah.
know. Yeah.
Um, what do you think about this? Claude says, I really like the idea of using Lex to portray anti-immigration mindsets by showing his jealousy slash resentment towards an outsider. I have an asterisk that I'd like to put on that, but that's what Claude says. Do you see that with Lex?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What do you think?
I think it depends on the adaptation, but I
Right.
think that isn't anti-immigrant. I see it as he's anti-God. Like he's anti, he wants to be God, right? Like
Right.
he
Yeah.
wants to be number one. If anyone is going to, like he says most of the time, like he distrusts Superman because of all the powers that he has. But I feel like if Lex had those powers, he would want the world's trust. Like he would not understand why the world doesn't trust him.
Yeah.
I think it's just the idea that he's the most egocentric man alive. We all know them, those type of people. He wants to be the center of the world, and he just can't handle the fact that like it's not something that like Lex can help because he's not Kryptonian.
Yeah.
Lex is just jealous. It's the ultimate form of jealousy. I think that like what happens in DC Comics is they try to draw parallels between like just like Marvel does it with X-Men and mutants and drawing parallels with marginalized groups. DC does it with like metahumans, people with
Hmm.
powers, can they be trusted, that sort of thing. Lex trusts metahumans as long as he can use them.
Yeah.
So I don't think because he's not anti-metahuman. He's not, for most interpretations, racist or sometimes he is sexist. Sure, I think he's egocentric
Yeah.
to the
Whatever
point
will
where
further his own cause and ego is like what he's down with, you know?
right.
Yeah.
So he would, I think Lex would flip flop or come up with some sort of intellectually consistent philosophy that doesn't need flip flopping, that just still puts him center of the universe.
Yeah.
You know? But it does vary on the interpretation because most of the time, bald, super smart genius, all the world's money. In Superman and Lois, again, because it's an alternate story, Lex has been in jail for 20 years for like
Hmm.
all of Superman, and Superman's been Superman for 20 years. So like at the start of his career, they put Lois puts Lex in jail for 20 years for a murder he didn't commit, though he's committed many other murders. He's in jail technically false, like wrongly. And so
Yeah.
he gets out and he feels like he's been wronged. And it's so interesting that Superman's done his whole career without Lex at all being his like arch nemesis.
Yeah.
And Lex comes out and Lex is essentially, he is super smart, but he's more like a biker gang leader. Like he's tough.
Hmm.
And he's played by the guy who plays, you would know him. He plays Abraham in Walking Dead, or
Yeah,
you know who I'm talking about?
I do. Hang on. I'm gonna Google him because this is so funny. We get the comics in sometimes that
Mhm.
have like the TV show covers, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Smallville.
Well, not Smallville, Superman and
Or
Lois.
sorry, wait. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Lewis.
yeah, that's what's cool about adaptations is they can do different things. I think sometimes it confuses people on like what is the real thing. I
Michael.
don't think there's a real thing personally. I take each thing sort of with its.
Okay. I actually don't recognize this guy. Michael
No?
Cutter is his name.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
been in a lot of stuff. I was watching Criminal Minds the other day with my girlfriend, and like I'm new to it and she's seen every episode, but like he appears and I'm like, and he like dies right away, and I'm like, this is an
You're like,
actor I know, and he dies right away.
yeah.
Is he coming back later? And he
Mm.
does in like flashbacks. I'm like, oh, because he just that's what he does. He's just like
Yeah.
he's on everything.
Right. I know this guy.
Yeah. But anyway, so like Lex is really cool, and it's always nice to see like a fresh new take on Lex and whatnot.
Yeah.
But Superman has so many other villains that don't go like adapted.
Yeah. I don't know. I think probably because Lex is like an um he's easy to adapt. He's easy to kind of mold into somebody that you would hate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, no CGI needed for Lex.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I'm very excited for Nicholas Holt too. I'm so excited to see him as
Yeah.
Lex. I think it's gonna be
Are you a Nicholas Holt fan?
since British Skins, I have loved Nicholas Holt.
I was about to say that's the first time I saw him,
Yeah,
and he's great in it, except for the fact that like sometimes Skins would leave me feeling gross.
for sure. Yeah.
And
I can't imagine that it aged well, but it produced some really like some titans in the acting industry now.
oh, for sure.
But yeah, I've that's how long I've followed his career.
Yeah.
He's great.
It's so funny that Nicholas Holt, and I'm trying to pull up a good picture of Lex in this, but Nicholas Holt, yeah, I remember him from Skins, and I remember him trying to like pick up a career in American stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so like I remember he was Jack in the Jack and the Beanstalk movie. You remember that movie?
Yeah, I do.
And
Vaguely.
like it
Yeah.
didn't do well. Here's a little picture of Nicholas Holt looking super cool as Lex. But then he was Hank McCoy, Beast in the X-Men movies, in the first
Oh
class
yeah.
X-Men movies.
I forgot about that. He's done so much and he's really good at being a bad guy. So like I'm trying to remember the movie he was just in that we watched where he's like a white supremacist. Hang on.
Mm. Is it because he decided to go bald for Superman, and so he's like, I might as well get it the most I can out of this haircut?
Maybe so the order, that's what it
Ooh,
was. Yeah, I mean, trigger warning, but like it's a really interesting movie and he
yeah,
plays an absolute piece of crap in it.
yeah,
I think after I watched that, I was like, he's gonna be just fine.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, he's also in that Catherine the Great show with Elle Fanning.
I haven't seen that.
Um, it's supposed to be good, but I don't know. I haven't watched it, but
Yeah.
um, good on him. This is
Yeah.
this is really like, what's the phrase? Securing the bag.
I mean,
Is that what the phrase is?
yeah, he's doing it.
Yeah.
He's in his bag.
Um.
That's what I say.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in
Uh.
it.
Yeah. He's also just super cool. Like, we haven't had a
Yeah.
guy look this cool as Lex Luthor since Michael Rosenbaum in Smallville.
That's what I'm saying. Like he looks like
Let's have a GQ Lex, right?
right. Exactly. Like I I mean, he always looks pretty much the same, but like when I read Lex, I kind of read him like that. Like charming kind of,
Yeah.
but also creepy. Like I don't know.
I mean, I think that he should be charming in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, it's hard to get ahead in whatever he's trying to do,
Most
right?
psychopaths are, yeah, for sure.
Like, he has to be charming even in the most fake way. Like, he just
Right.
has to be
Yeah.
able to fool somebody.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't know if have you seen Superman Returns?
Mm-mm.
That's the one with Brandon Routh. Um, I like Brandon Routh. It just wasn't a good movie.
Okay.
But it has it has Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Did you ever see it?
yeah. No,
It's a mess of a movie.
but I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um in it, Kevin Spacey is just kind of playing it goofy like Gene Hackman did in the Christopher Reeve movies. Um and it starts off with a woman dying on her like deathbed, an old rich lady dying, and I think he like comes in and he's like, "I love you so much. Like, I'm gonna be so sad when you're gone. Quick, sign these papers before you die." And she signs her fortune over to him, and then she dies. And then he's like, "I'm rich again. I'm Lex Luthor." And then,
Okay. All right.
you know, so at the very least, he charmed that old lady out of billions.
Yeah. Real salt burn stuff, you know.
I've never seen it, but
It's kind of what happens.
okay.
Yeah.
I've heard gross things.
It's gross. Yeah. Anyway.
Um, do you have a and I'm throwing up Michael Rosenbaum, his picture here, just so everybody can see. This guy's dashing. He is very CW, and he plays a really good Lex. It's not just his looks. He is sinister, and it's so good. And he just gets worse and worse as time goes on, in the
Mhm.
best way. Um, but no, do you have a favorite villain that isn't Lex that hasn't been adapted yet? Like, anyone stand out?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know that I've read enough Superman to have another favorite villain. You know what
That's
I
fair.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Superman. Uh, I'll read some of this chat in a little second. Superman has like really good villains that have never been adapted. Like Brainiac has yet to be adapted properly.
That
He
would be
is,
cool.
yeah, he's a in most adaptations or some adaptations he's like a Kryptonian artificial intelligence sort of robot.
Yeah.
Um, then there's Parasite, who is this purple monster that takes either people's life force or their powers or both. So Superman can't touch him without having his powers taken. That would be so good in live action. That would be a
Yeah.
threat,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
agree.
Then there's Metallo, who used to be a gang leader slash mob boss, whatever. And then he gets a robot body with a kryptonite heart, so he's like super strong, and he makes Superman weak. Um, there's so many good characters that aren't Lex, that aren't Zod that you could like really do something with, and they
Yeah.
don't. You know, in the chat, Curly Insane Guy says Lex and Mr. Terrific were both in First Class. That's right. The Nicholas Hoult is in First Class and Superman, and then I forget his name, but he played Darwin in First Class, and he plays Mr. Terrific in the new Superman movie. So,
And
and then Claude also says, Claude is Curly Insane Guy. He says Rosenbaum is quote unquote dashing because he also voiced the Flash in the Justice League cartoon.
Okay.
So there you go, little lore about him. Superman, I think, and this is where a lot of adaptations fail. I grew up on like team stuff, so like X-Men, Justice League, Teen Titans, that sort of thing. I love team dynamics. And even when like dealing with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you're dealing with 4 of them, right? They're a team. And I like stories that kind of come out of this dynamic, mostly because you're not focusing on one character and just following them throughout the whole story. You're like jumping back and forth, other characters, that sort of thing. I think the best Superman adaptations like throw focus also on the people that surround him.
Yeah, I agree.
Are you a big
Because they're
Lois?
so important to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just a camera following Superman around during his day, but what about the people that are close to him, people that support him, people that are affected by him? Like, that's super important. And it seems like the new movie is going to be showing us that. The Daily Planet, which is the newspaper that he works for, that building, the supporting cast there. But obviously, Lois Lane, the love of his life.
Yeah. Which I think going back to wanting a Superman who is like, emotional and empathetic and has this like multi-dimensional personality, it is important to show all of these people that are adjacent to him and like why they matter so much. I feel like it fleshes him out as a character more too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of the thing about like writing these characters. Like, it's one thing to have a Wolverine solo movie, but like I really want to know how he feels about the other X-Men.
Yeah.
And so bringing it back to how we were talking about, like, some people say Superman is boring. I think that there can be boring adaptations of Superman, mostly because they don't focus on the people around him. They're focusing on him. And not that he's a boring character in and of himself, but Superman exists as a mirror to the world.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason Superman is so great is because he's put in situations with people that aren't. And if you, like, like, if you only know, like, if you only know 3 people in this world, and, like, they're all, like, whatever people, you're still going to think they're the best people in the world, right? But, like, show the world, show the people around him, show the people that are making selfish decisions while he makes, hopefully, the correct one, or the more just decision. Are you a fan of Lois Lane?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Always. I think that she is uh almost like a more consistently better written character than him.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think because everybody just kind of agrees that like that's the love of his life. You know what I mean? Like you don't question that. There's only ever been one time where I've not liked like reading their relationship, and it was in Superman Lost, where they like, yeah.
It's Superman Lost being the comic that's like out of continuity, but
yeah. I didn't like where they were going with that. The implied.
I thought they didn't imply that he cheated. They just I think they were leading us there.
Like 2 issues, yeah, they were like I feel like it was implied. And I think I might have stopped reading it after that.
That's fair.
Like, no, we're done.
It turns out he didn't. But there was still tension involved. I don't want to go down this route as like a relationship podcast, but did you ever see Castaway?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Tom Hanks stuck on an island for years, and then he comes back and he has been thinking about his love, either his wife or his girlfriend or the fiance at the time or whatever. I think it's
Yeah.
Helen Hunt, and he goes to her, and she got remarried, like she got and she has a new life. They all thought he was dead. So in Superman Lost, he's on this other planet for years upon years, at least in his time, and because there's like an anomaly with whatever. And like he doesn't know he's ever going to get back, but he keeps hope that he's going to get back. Would you fault someone for being stuck on a desert island and getting with somebody else, or vice versa? You think your person is gone forever and you get with someone else?
Um, my immediate reaction is yes.
Would you fault, like, yes, you would fault them?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Because it's also personal, right? Like, it's like you're
Yeah.
hurt by it.
Well, and like they're so uh like they're Superman and Lois, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know.
Regardless of whether I blame him or not, or blame anyone there or not, um, I like Superman and Lois when they're past the will they, won't they.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Like that's the only time I've ever not liked reading their relationship because to me, like that's so far past like they're good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We don't need to wonder,
Yeah.
you know.
Speaking
So,
of wonder, I hate it when Superman, like, for a moment in time, he got paired up with Wonder Woman
hmm.
as his love, and
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah. No. I'm not a fan of that either.
It's so weird. It seemed to me, it was a lot of like, there was like a weird moment in time where people were shipping President Obama with Beyonce.
I kind of remember that. And
Such
it's
a
like,
weird
why?
thing.
Yeah.
He's married, for one. She was also married at the time, but I have thoughts about that. But why would you do that? Like, I think you're just misunderstanding just everything about human beings.
Yeah, it's like they were just the two biggest people in the world at that time.
Yeah,
It's like, Superman and Wonder Woman are like just these two very famous superheroes that everybody knows. So obviously they have to get together. You know what
yeah.
I mean? No, not at
That's
all.
also how I feel about when people pair Black Panther with Storm in Marvel.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
like it. I don't like that pairing, but that's just me. Let us know in the chat what you guys think. If you guys are watching this. So yes, Lois Lane is his love, and so I think in this movie, like they're really. I love the fact that in the movie, from what we see from the trailer, that she knows he's Superman, right?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I hope that there's no like beating around the bush there. You know what I mean? I hope that we just go in and she's like, yeah, I do too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's also like an investigative journalist. You know?
Like how we never really got an origin story for like the MCU Peter Parker, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like everybody knows. You know what I mean? So like everybody knows that she knows. So let's just go in all knowing. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I what was I gonna say? I was gonna say, um, oh, how do you feel about secret identities? Because like something that's been coming up a lot recently I've been talking about is the fact that like the MCU doesn't really deal with secret identities much. There are a couple key characters in the Marvel movies that have secret identities, and I don't mean there's secret identities to the public, and there's also secret identities to your friends and family and close ones.
Yeah.
And I can understand having a secret identity for the public, but I think that like the person that you love should know your secret identity, because I think you're putting him in more danger. Like Mary Jane should know about Peter Parker, Lois should know about Superman. Um,
Yeah.
you know, like I would hope I get why Commissioner Gordon, not that he's Batman's love per se, but why he should or shouldn't know about Batman's secret identity, but like maybe Batman's a little bit different. But like the point being is that like How do you feel about secret identities?
I'm with you. Like I understand it. Um, but I feel like it's a better idea than it is like a lived truth. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's better in theory. But eventually these things always get found out. But I do understand it.
Would
I'm
you
cool with it.
understand Superman keeping it from Lois?
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Like I don't understand keeping it from, like a partner or like people that you're around all the time,
Right.
you know.
Maybe not
So,
as coworkers,
yeah, yeah. I get that.
you know? Also,
Yeah.
there is a certain amount of like, if you don't want it to the public, who do you tell that can still keep the secret close?
Exactly. Because you tell the wrong person, then everybody's gonna know anyway.
Right.
That'd be
So,
tricky. I don't
uh,
know. I feel like if it were me, I would just want it to be public knowledge.
really,
But like I understand why some people keep it a secret.
that's like going full celebrity though.
Yeah.
That means paparazzi at your door every single day.
Yeah. I'd like Tony Stark it and be like, you know what? It was me.
You would?
I think I would. Yeah.
I think this is an interesting thought experiment.
Okay.
You wouldn't like, but that means your family would be hounded. It also means that bad guys who do not like you, even if they can't go to you directly, they will go after your loved ones.
Okay. I guess it depends on like if you have loved ones. You know what I mean?
Are you
Like
in,
I
are you saying I don't, so I'm okay going
no,
public?
I'm just saying like if I wasn't like married and had a son, you know what I mean? If
uh,
it was just me and like I had a superpower, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. But I don't know.
if you have a loved one, like Superman has Lois, and then if Superman goes public with it, can Lois protect herself from any villain coming
I
after
don't
Lois?
I don't
So you
know.
have to be Batman. Like you would have to be just in secret all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. But like you see the problem with keeping it a secret from your loved ones
Right.
too is like I don't know. You disappear and then you show up like covered in bruises and like cuts and stuff and then you can't explain why like eh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
That's that's a tricky question.
I think like in my life, I would tell my parents.
Yeah.
I would tell my sister and my brother-in-law because they that would keep it tight. And then I would tell my girlfriend. But I also
Yeah.
think that if you're in a relationship with someone, here's a question: what comes first, I love you or your secret identity?
Or I'm a superhero.
What comes first?
I don't know.
What's the bigger commitment?
Well, I don't know if it's a commitment issue. It's more of like,
I think you're committing. I think you're like telling them secret identity because if you break up, you gotta hope that it still stays secret.
so you would say that you love them first.
But is that a lie? Not that lie about loving, but the secret that you are a
That's
superhero.
what I'm saying. Like if you get
Ooh.
someone, if you convince somebody to love you and then you wait to tell them about your secret identity until after that, then you've hidden this big giant thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
that's a question for everybody out there too. How does love fit in with secret identities?
Yeah.
It kind of works in. I like it in the MCU where MJ Michelle MJ knows that Peter Parker is Spider Man.
Yeah. I think in a perfect world, you're just in another relationship with another super powered person or like someone else in that kind of realm. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we always joke, because we watch wrestling and stuff a lot, and like they're like everybody that we know who is in the wrestling business is either married to someone who is also in the wrestling business or someone who couldn't give two craps about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's one or the other. I feel like that kind of also falls into like superhero stuff. It's like you either marry someone who's like on the front, like on the front lines with you,
Yeah.
or they're locked up in a tower somewhere so you don't have to worry about him.
Right.
I don't know.
It's funny that you brought in wrestling when most people would just say celebrities, just in general. But you
Yeah,
brought it like, yeah, pro wrestling. That this
that's true.
is
I
this
guess
is
it does
how
count like actors and stuff
right.
too, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, like there are actors that wanna, that get married or whatever to like people who aren't actors and they, you know, do
yeah,
their thing. And there's some actors that it's almost like, is it a stunt sometimes when actors date? Maybe, but like when they marry, hopefully it's not a stunt. And they marry
right.
because they can see that industry for what it is. So the superhero industry, essentially,
Yeah,
like having someone who knows that, I also like the idea that like in most adaptations or whatever, in most good Superman adaptations, Lois falls in love with Clark, but she is attracted to Superman. But she's
yeah,
in love with Clark and she would never cheat. And it does become this weird, yeah, is it cheating? Is it not? I don't know.
yeah.
Um, but then
I think
again, is
that's
it
cute too, though.
would
Because I mean, in that world, Superman's just like a celebrity. You know what I mean? And
right.
like everybody's entitled to have a celebrity crush.
Yeah. But if Superman flirts with Lois and Lois doesn't know it's Clark, and Lois flirts back to Superman,
I feel like then he would just tell her. You know what I mean? He'd be like, "Girl," you know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't. I don't know.
How do you feel about Superman's secret identity in the sense that, and this is also a problem that people bring up. By the way, Val on our YouTube chat. By the way, youtube.com/the Keeg Show. If you guys feel like chatting, Val says if someone loves you, I don't think they need convincing. We're turning into a relationship podcast.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
mean,
It is
submit
what
your
it is.
questions below,
If
dear
someone loves
Abby.
you, I don't think they need convincing. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where that fits in with this, but like it is true.
I don't know.
Um, but let's talk about Superman's secret identity. The fact that like people don't people don't believe that like he puts on the glasses, people don't know it's him, right?
Yeah.
Do you how have you felt about that? And I'm gonna try to bring up a picture um that'll prove my point. But how do you feel about it?
About just like the glasses being his only quote unquote disguise.
Yeah, and is it dumb? Is it not dumb?
I mean, I I do think it's a little corny, but like it works, you know, and it has worked for decades. So, I don't know. Who am I to judge?
Do you feel it's dumb though that an investigative reporter wouldn't be able to tell the difference?
A little bit. But again, it's fiction. So, I don't know. Maybe she's blinded by love and she can't figure it out. I'm not
Um,
I'm not gonna dumb her down like that though. She's smart, but I don't know. I do think it's a little corny, but everybody else that has a secret identity that keeps it from their partner like wears a mask or something. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So, I
And
don't know.
Superman classically does not wear a mask because he wants to be trusted.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to be a vigilante in that respect.
Right. Yeah.
Um I think my argument for Clark Kent and Superman, people not knowing he's the same thing, is did you ever watch Family Matters?
Yeah.
Steve Urkel and Stefan Urkel are two completely different characters.
Right.
And I'm trying to bring this picture up so we can see it. No one who meets Steve Urkel in real life and then meets Stefan Urkel would ever think to themselves, that's the same person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
When he like becomes cool.
Yes. See, for me, it's like, how do you not recognize someone's voice?
If he changes it. And in the movie trailer, it seems like he changes it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm just like, I don't know. It frustrates me like when I read Daredevil. You know what I mean? I'm like, I know that you're talking to these people as a lawyer, and like, how do they not recognize your voice?
I mean, I think you're like your closest people to you would like recognize that like
Yeah. I like the way you
that's
smell.
ew. Would you want to smell Daredevil? Just like I don't know.
Well, I'm just
Is he
like,
gonna smell the same way?
well, I mean, I don't know. What if he's got to throw the suit on in a flash and he's like on a date? You know what I mean? So he's
Yeah,
got like cologne or something on. You're like, I've smelled this before. I don't know. I'm reading too far into it, but like,
yeah.
I feel like I would recognize people.
I'm gonna throw up a picture of Urkel and Urkel. Technically, they're these pictures are couple years apart, but this is Steve Urkel on the left, if anyone's watching us live, and Stefan Urkel on the right. And I don't, if you've ever watched the show or even seen these pictures, if you look up Steve Urkel and Stefan Urkel, Jaleel White, the actor, acts them as two different people in the way that Clark Kent and Superman would be.
Yeah.
And um, that's the joke of Family Matters is that like Stefan Urkel, it's Steve Urkel plus cool juice is what he calls it. He like
Yeah.
drinks cool juice, he goes into the machine, he becomes cool, and like all the girls love Urkel, all the girls hate Urkel. Um and I think that like if you saw them, if you dealt with both of them separate from each other and nobody told you, I think that you could see that like they're different people.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
But you
Like I
know,
said, I get it. Like, because I know he like changes his posture and stuff too, like Superman
Superman,
does.
yeah,
So, like, I get it. It's a little corny, but
it's a
it
little corny.
works.
It is still corny. I get it.
It works though.
In the olden days, the out of continuity stuff from like the old Superman comics, it's called super hypnotism, and it's just a subconscious thing with the glasses.
Yeah.
That's why I don't recommend reading like Superman comics from the beginning. Because for anyone new to Superman comics or DC comics, there was a big company wide reboot around 86, 87, 1986, 1987, where they essentially said that all those old stories from the 1930s and 1980s are like out of continuity, but they've grabbed bits and pieces and created a new universe and new continuity from 86, 87 onwards that then technically ends around 2010. But the point being is that like DC continuity is what it is. You kind of pick and choose until they say there's a definitive continuity. So Superman, that's why in the movie he kisses Lois Lane and she forgets that he's Clark, and that's one of his powers, I guess, in the movie. Or he flies out to space and spins the world back in time. Um, Superman classically does not have that, like, or at least modern times does not have that power, but it is what it is. Uh, Super hypnotism is the old school way of saying when he puts on his glasses, you don't know it's him.
Yeah.
He also had super ventriloquism, which was also a random power in the old comics. He could throw his voice. And like,
Okay.
I think he used to do like a throw a voice of like, oh, there's Clark Kent over there around the corner,
Oh,
and I'm
I see.
Superman.
Get a little distraction going.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
it is what it is. But uh, if we're talking about Superman comics, which is something big that wanted to talk about in this episode, again, and I was talking about it on a previous episode of Comic Talk, where you can't really start at issue number one, and comic book purists, comic book historians, let's just say, if they're thinking about themselves, they will just essentially go reading order is from one to infinity, right? But like I like to think of like giving recommendations as a class. So with the title of this episode being Superman 101, if we were thinking about this being a general entry level Superman class, what would be the good Superman comics to recommend and why? Like where do you start with this? Because again, comics are for everyone. You just got to find the comic that works for you, that you would dig, and then also like not get overwhelmed with the fact that there have been decades of comics. You don't need to read all of them.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like it's important with a character like Superman, who, as we were just talking about, has such a different identity in Clark Kent. I feel like it's important to recommend stories about both.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like for me, there are comics where I'm like, wow, that's a great Clark Kent story. And then there's other comics where I'm like, that's a beautiful Superman story. Um, so I feel like I kind of categorize them in that way.
Um, so how would you go about your recommendations? Like, what would you, if somebody had to read a Superman book, a Superman story, right? Like from, um, like their first ever Superman book.
Hmm.
What do you recommend?
I would say, without a doubt, For All Seasons from Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale.
I
I
have
feel
that
like,
in front of me. Yeah.
yeah, I tried to look for my copy. I don't know what I've done with it, but
Some of these comics can be hard to find. I think I have
yeah,
them on the Amazon shop, amazon.com/shop/slash the Keeg Show. I think it's on there. But this is the cover, Superman for all seasons.
yeah. They did side note, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale did the color series for Marvel where they did like really in-depth character analysis of I think it was Captain America, Daredevil, Hulk,
Spider-Man.
and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And this really feels like that. This is what you want to read if you want to get to know Clark Kent as a character and like what makes him Superman to me. And it's short. It's not like you can read it in one sitting.
And it's not too heavy with lore at all. In fact,
No.
most of the stuff is human things.
Yeah, like you get a quick little like origin story like we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's him, I think he's in high school, right? Like and then he's
Starts
graduating.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like a young adult. And so it's like the most formative time for him and, really most people. But I think For All Seasons, and this is not the first time I've spoken about that. I think that that is a really good introductory comic for Superman. Because it's self-contained, it's short, it's to the point about who he is and what motivates him as a character.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it, what vibes is it giving off? Because some people want to see Superman punch people, and some
Yeah.
people want to like learn how a man with godlike powers could be human, right? Like,
Mhm.
what are the vibes
Yeah.
that Superman for All Seasons gives off?
Um, from memory, I don't really think there's much action in it at all. I think it's definitely more of like an introspective character analysis.
Right,
Um, which, like I said, if you've read like Spider-Man Blue or like Daredevil Yellow or stuff like that, that's what it feels like. That's what it is. But yeah, it's more of what makes up his personality and uh I don't know. He's not punching people. It's not like an action comic,
right.
for lack of a better word. I didn't mean to say action comic, but
Because yeah,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
this right here is the cover of Superman for All Seasons. Definitely worth checking out. Find it. I mean, some libraries. I think I read this at my local public library when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And like it really is a good one. Now, if you're a kid, maybe it might not be the one for you, not appropriate wise, but just I think as a kid I might have been like, oh, there's isn't much action in this. But as an adult, I think you
Yeah.
can appreciate like the
Yeah.
slow and steady nature of it.
Agreed. Agreed. I think kids or younger people, like my son is 11
Mm-hmm.
and I gave him my copy of Superman Smashes the Klan to
Mm.
read and he loved it. And there is action in that one.
You want to talk about Superman Smashes the Klan?
We sure can, unless you had something in mind.
No, these are all books that I have literally right.
But you said I have it on deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that and loved it. And my son, I can't remember. They had like some reading thing that they were doing at his school where they had to read a graphic novel. And I was like, "Ooh, let me see what I have that you can read," and gave him that. And he loved it. He thought it was great. But that is another one definitely written for like all ages. that is it has more action to it than For All Seasons, but is still a very formative story of Superman and like who he is as a person. And of course, by the title, he beats the hell out of Klan members
Yeah.
in his town. They find out that white supremacists are living in his town, and they, take issue with it. And these people are causing havoc on the in the city. But yeah, you do get to see him beat up Nazis, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing. So, I mean, Smallville is the small town in Kansas that Superman's little pod crash landed. Jonathan Martha Kent adopt him, right? And they raise him as a small town boy in like classic Americana, right? And that is such a big part of Superman's identity that he starts off in this small town, learns these values, let's just say. And these values are not hateful values, as we see in Superman Smashes the Klan. They're not hateful values. And then Superman goes to the big city, takes those values. He is the same person as he was, and he becomes Superman in the city of Metropolis, the big city. And like it's super integral to his character that he does that. And so right now I'm gonna try to prep some of these images, but Superman Smashes the Klan is an all ages book.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
here's the question for you. How do you feel about people saying who would say that it wouldn't be an all ages book because it's about literally the Ku Klux Klan?
Um, mm, I don't know if you want me to go there.
You can
I
go
don't know
there.
how.
It's up to
I
you.
think
It's up to you and what you want to talk about. I'm cool with whatever.
I thanks. I think that if you have an issue with your preteen or whoever reading about a superhero beating up white supremacists, um, then you have other issues that you need to address within your home and your family and your morals. Because I like that my kid thinks it's cool that superheroes beat up Nazis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and if you have a problem with that, then I'm gonna go ahead and assume that you are the kind of person who doesn't like when Superman smiles or like has a good time and isn't just like a stoic statue of a man. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like that Venn diagram is a little bit of a circle at that point. Um, I will say, like, yes, there is action and like he's like beating these guys up, but it's not like bloody, gory, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So if that's what you're worried about, it's really not, you know, not that type of violence.
Right. Here's the thing. This is something very interesting about Superman's history is that Superman in the comics set up a couple things, but like for example, Superman did not have flight. He could not fly in the early comics from
Hmm.
1938. And but what they did was Superman became so popular they created a radio serial series that expanded the lore of Superman that then became continuity in the comics, which is
Yes.
like introducing I think characters um Jimmy Olsen, giving him flight, because that's the whole thing about like stronger than a locomotive, ability to leap tall buildings in single bound. He just had super jump. He didn't have super flight.
Yeah.
One of the things though, and it's very interesting, is Superman Smashes the Klan was a radio show in the olden days.
Yep.
Before it was adapted by Gene Luen Yang to comic book form recently.
Yep.
And I'm trying to find the exact uh
I think it was 40.
1946.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um this Superman story, Superman Smashes the Klan, is uh a retelling of the 1946 radio show arc Clan of the Fiery Cross. It was a 16 episode arc.
Yep.
And I'm looking it up right now. And the show damaged the Ku Klux Klan's reputation and led to a steep decline in membership that the KKK has never recovered. This serial, this 1946 radio show, put Superman up against the Klan and showed us which side would you want to be on.
Yeah, literally. So a Chinese American immigrant decided to retell that story in, I can't remember when that book came out, just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it is more relevant today than it was in 1946. But that just goes to show that's how far, like, even as widely adapted as a character like Superman is, like, those core morals to him have always been the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that asking what would Superman do is a valid question.
Yeah.
And I think that there are certain off beliefs about Superman that have been passed around that I think doesn't work if you have any sort of media literacy or
Yeah.
historical knowledge of Superman whatsoever.
Yeah.
Let it be known that like he was created by Siegel and Schuster in 1938 to I believe they were Jewish Americans, right? So like there was a Moses allegory in the beginning, and then later in the comics, Superman dies in Death of Superman in the 90s and becomes like a Jesus allegory, but for most of the time, he is a Moses allegory. At least leading people towards their hopeful destination, right? Leading by example and that sort of thing. So I think Superman's interesting. Superman Smashes the Klan is such a good book. Also, it's not like, first thing, sure, it's not thick this way, but also is a fairly smaller size.
Yeah.
Compared to some other comic books.
Yeah.
Which means it can fit in your purse.
That's the collected edition, and it came out in like 3. It's gonna take me too long to find it, but it came out in like 3 smaller little books. I don't know if you remember like the animated Justice League, like little tiny comics that they
Yeah.
came out with. It was like that size. There was 3 of those. So that's the collected edition. And yeah, it is small. It's another one you can read in like a day.
Yeah.
It's good.
Super good.
It's super good.
Look, so far I'm not pushing back on any of your recommendations. I wasn't gonna do it anyway, but like your recommendations are also my recommendations. So
I was gonna ask if you had any too.
I don't know if you've read Superman Birthright.
No.
So
I've actually been looking for that. There's some that I know you're gonna recommend that I have been looking for like 2 years, like in trade paperback form. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Superman Birthright, it came out, when did it come out? It came out around Smallville time because, and this is the funny thing about Superman continuity, is that like Lex and Clark did not grow up together in Smallville. Originally they didn't, then they did in like old comics. Because they were like, oh, Superman becomes Superboy, and Lex is a supporting cast member in his like Superboy's adventures in Smallville. Later on, DC is like, Superman doesn't become Superman until Metropolis, so it like it erases Superboy having like his adventures in Smallville beforehand. Then Smallville comes out and reintroduces the idea that Lex grew up in Smallville with Clark. So Michael Rosenbaum's Lex, Tom Welling's Superman, they grew up together, and they were friends, and he developed a hatred for him. So in the comics at that point, Lex didn't grow up with Superman in Smallville. This comic came out in 2003, and it was 12 issues of comics in 2003, compiled into the book in 2004. This reintroduces the fact that Lex grew up in Smallville. So it brings it back into continuity that, like, Lex and him. It's written by Mark Waid with art by Lionel Francis Yu. And it starts off with Clark Kent traveling around the world, and then has, like, some flashbacks. He's traveling around the world before he goes to Metropolis to become Superman. And he's in Africa. he's being a journalist there before he works with Daily Planet, but he's also like stopping like like terrorism threats and whatnot in different sectors of the world. He wrestles a lion in Africa, and like, you know, if you're a fan of like good wholesome cheesecake, you know, you got Clark right here, right? And so like, if that's your thing, I think there's something for everybody. This became the definitive Superman origin story. And again, I love Mark Waid. Mark Waid, to me, I don't want to say Mark Waid can do no wrong, because I don't think anyone can do no wrong, but like, Mark Waid is one of the best writers of comics of all time.
He's a great writer. Yeah.
And he knows his shit. But like, the art is great, the writing is great. I love that it just kind of recontextualizes kind of Smallville lore at the time of Smallville came out in like 2002. This came out in like 2003. So like, it was pretty much on the heels of Smallville. And it has action. So like, you do have big spider robots and things like that, but it's not as human as Superman for All Seasons, because I think they're trying to do different things. But
Yeah.
this is definitely, I think that Man of Steel might have looked at this like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. I don't think it does it as well, but I think that it definitely looked at it, because it has a Kryptonian invasion force in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He flipped through it.
What's that?
I said Zack
Yeah.
Snyder flipped through it.
Yeah. You
He
know?
he gave it a look over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rewriting that one down because I've been looking for that, and like there's a couple other ones just for me personally that I know I want to read.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one I keep forgetting to buy.
What's another one that pops up for you?
I think the most obvious one would be All-Star Superman, Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
I think that's like the most universally loved
Mm-hmm.
at this point. Um, and it seems like it's going to inspire the James Gunn movie. I'm not super sure, but
I hope it inspires it in a more thematic way,
yeah, yeah,
not in the plot, because
yeah, for sure. I agree.
my only concern about All Star Superman, I mean, it's a great recommendation, so I'm not pushing
Yeah,
back on the fact that it's a recommendation. I don't think that people's first read should be All Star.
sure.
Like,
It's one of those things. It's like what I was saying earlier, like categorizing things. That to me is a really good story to solidify Superman.
oh, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? Yeah. So, no, I wouldn't suggest it as like a first read, but once you're aware of Clark and adjacent characters and like what motivates him as a character, that's a great Superman story to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to talk about All Star Superman just because, like, here's also the thing: is just like readers, comic book readers, we'll tend to recommend the best stories, or the stories that are to us the best or our favorite or whatever. But
Yeah.
what sometimes, and this trips me up sometimes, especially when I have to, people ask me about X-Men and where to
Mhm.
start. I can't share my favorite X-Men because X-Men builds upon itself. So I have to like rewind and think to myself, what did I start off with?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't off-put people also, because sometimes people will, and I'll do this, start a new series and get overwhelmed by it. And I'm like, I'm so lost, I can't. How?
Exactly.
What am I gonna do here?
Yeah.
And then it puts me off of the whole thing.
Yeah. I think like those shorter like mini series are almost always a really good way to go for especially like singular characters. Because you get just like the most amount of one-on-one time. You don't have to pilfer through team books or, anything like that. Something that
Yeah.
has like a massive continuity to it. But yeah, I agree.
Um, have you ever met or ever met? Have you ever met anyone who reads comics? No. Have you ever read Superman American Alien?
No, that's another one that I keep forgetting the title. I keep going back to like videos I posted like 2 years ago
Uh-huh.
where people were recommending stuff. American Alien. Yes.
So Superman American Alien is also like a new origin story for Superman in a way. Whether you want to consider it in continuity or not, it doesn't do too much to break continuity, but it is essentially Superman goes to Metropolis for the first time. There are multiple artists on this, but it is written by Max Landis, and then it has like flashbacks to Smallville, drawn by Nick Dragotta, who right now is drawing Absolute Batman.
Okay. Yeah.
And so like it's cute in a way, but there's a lot of like really human there's a lot of really human scenes in this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't get brought up enough. I do like it.
That is what I need to read for sure.
There's a literal issue in this where Clark gets stuck on a yacht and people think he's Bruce Wayne. So I think the premise is there's a birthday party for Bruce Wayne on this yacht, but Bruce doesn't show up to his own party.
Go figure.
And all the rich people who are there have never met Bruce. Because it's very showboaty, right?
Yeah, right.
And so Clark.
So they pick a hunky brunette and they're like, that's got to be him.
Yeah. And they're all like, happy birthday. And Clark gets to live out his, like, essentially, like, he grew up on a small farm. This is him living Bruce Wayne's life.
That's hilarious. That's great.
I'm just reading this. It's so good. They're in a jacuzzi eating, like, caviar on crackers or whatever. One of the guys in the jacuzzi says, never thought I'd hear Bruce Wayne worry about money. And Clark goes, I'm not Bruce Wayne. And then there's a pause, and the guy goes, deep.
Nice. Yeah, now I have to read that because I have my own personal beef with Bruce Wayne, so any chance I can get to laugh at him is good.
I mean, again, when it comes to Bruce Wayne, I like certain adaptations of Batman. I love Batman a lot, but I just think that's a lot of Batman adaptations fall on the crutch of let's just have angry, moody loner Batman.
Yeah.
But is that what your therapist wants, Bruce? No. Make friends, start a family. That's the Bruce I love. Yeah. Family man Bruce.
He can't do it. He's too immature. I don't know what to tell you.
You gotta. There are good Bat family books. Just saying.
You want to talk about good villains? Gotham, I think, has better villains, but that's another story for another time. But
I mean, yeah. But that's also the thing is what sucks is people compare Batman to Superman a lot.
Yeah.
And then not only do they compare of like which one would they rather read, they also put them into fights all the time. And I'm not a big fan of power battles at all. I was when I was a kid, but I think you outgrow that because you realize that the stories are less about the powers and it's more about like the plot and the narrative and the characters. It isn't like just because someone is not as strong as somebody else doesn't mean that their stories are not as good or vice versa. You know? Was there another Superman book that you would recommend? All-Star Superman, by the way, is a good choice. I wasn't naysaying it.
I didn't think you were.
It's a classic. It's like quintessential Superman.
Yeah. I think you get a good sense, again, of like who Superman is. Anyway, no. I think for like basics, like 101, everything else that I would recommend is maybe a little bit too far. Like, it would just have to be a regular, let's talk about Superman stories we love kind of day. Right. You know what I mean? So I feel like the 3 that got brought up on my end are probably what I would recommend first, and then the 2 that you got. Yeah. What else do you have?
Well, I just grabbed those 4 mostly because I was going through my bookshelf, and I just did a video on TikTok about it. But like, I have a lot of Superman books on the bookshelf, but I don't think that they're Superman 101 in a way, right? Like,
Right.
what I hate is when an adaptation feels that they need to kill Superman. That the only interesting thing about Superman is when he died. Like,
Yeah.
it is, I don't agree with that. I don't think
Yeah.
Superman ever needs to die unless you choose for the narrative to have that. But, like, I don't think it's quintessential to his character to die and come back. I think that it's a part of Superman lore that is important, but also if you adapt it, you never have to touch that if you don't want to.
Yeah. No, if anything, I feel like it makes him like a weaker if he dies and comes back like 10 times. You know what I
Right.
mean? I don't know.
Which is
But
something
that's kind
good
of
that.
what,
Oh,
go
what?
ahead. I was gonna say that's what kind of put me off about starting reading DC Comics anyway, like when I first got into comics, because like everybody dies and then just gets resurrected. And it's like, what's the point of reading these, if that's the only thing, like you said, the only interesting thing that happens to some of these characters. But
Right.
uh,
I
anyway.
think that when it comes to comics, if we take them story at a time, we can like love them. And I
Yeah.
think that like we can read them, we can digest them better if we take them like our recommendations, stories at times, we read them, and when you get used to that, then you can start reading like ongoing books. Like start now. Go
Hmm.
to your comic shop, comicshoplocator.com, find a comic shop near you. But you go there, you read your books in order, and then you read these like side stories and you catch up on past stuff. When you're ready to do monthly comics, weekly comics, whatever, jump in, but you don't have to. You just read these individual books. And I think that like understanding that like these characters have been around for decades, things change, things shift. Characters do die and come back. Instead of viewing that as like a continuity thing, view it as just an excuse to keep loving your characters and enjoying the individual stories where maybe in the end they die, but then they come back and you get to continue loving these characters going forward. Like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not real people. Real people don't die and come
Right.
back, right? Sure. But they're
Yeah.
stories, and so they're just a collection of stories. I think it would be focused more about the love of comics, which is kind of what the Keeg is based upon, like the love of comics. I think that it's way better than like talking about the things that you hate, you know?
For sure. Oh yeah. 100. There's more to love than there is to hate, I feel like.
And I think that we can bond over the things we love way better. Because if we bond over the things we hate, we're gonna split into so many factions.
Yeah.
You know?
That's no fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't
Yeah.
talk about the adaptations I hate. And that's okay. We don't need to, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Um Also, with a character like Superman, in the meta sense, why not talk about the things that unite us?
Because I mean, he's for so many different people. You know what I mean? So I think he's a great character to get into, especially if you're not sure if you would like him or relate to him.
Yeah.
And speaking from personal experience, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty naive outlook to have, because he's a great character. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
he's just the start. I mean, there
Yeah.
are characters. I mean, we've brought up throughout this stuff like there are really good like Lois Lane comics, right? Whether it's her solo series or not, she's in other people's comics, whatever. But
Yeah.
like there is also like Supergirl, which is Superman's cousin.
Supergirl, Superboy.
Yeah, Superboy,
Uh,
who is there's there's like Superboy, which is Clark being a kid in Smallville, but then which they're bringing back into continuity. You don't
yeah.
have to worry about it if you don't want to. But there's also Superboy, which is Connor Kent, which is a clone of Lex and Clark put together, and
Yeah.
he's younger and he's hipper and cooler and whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
There's his little what leather jacket.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then there's also Superboy, who becomes Superman later, which is Clark's son, which is something that I've always thought like it's great that Superman is married and he has a kid and he has a family and he has some adopted kids now. And you don't need to bog yourself down with all that right now.
Mm-mm.
But it's cool to get into if you choose to keep continuing forward with these. If you want the iconic Superman stories, like sure, the recommendations we have. If you want to keep reading, then that's up to you.
Yeah. I'm into it.
follow the thread that you love, I think. If when it starts feeling like homework, maybe that's not the homework for you. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah.
Um Darth Chaco in our chat saying you always have great guests. Yeah. When Maggie's on, it's always great.
I
Chaco also says conversations on what we love are so much more personal and interesting and engaging, and hearing others' joy does nothing but bring us all up. Exactly. Chaco being a preeminent member of Star Wars content creators and
yeah.
that sort of thing, like, same goes with that fandom. Talking about things we love is way better.
Yeah. Way
You
more
know?
fun.
Yeah.
And very well
Um,
said, Chaco.
yeah, very well said, Chaco.
Love it.
Um, but yeah, I'm really excited for this upcoming movie. I think what sets it apart is that Superman is the quote unquote greatest of us all, right? Like, it's not just his powers, it's his personality and the
Yeah.
fact,
Humanity, you know?
yeah, he
Yeah.
exists in a universe that already has heroes that have been before him and has heroes that are after him, but he is that point in history, right?
Yeah.
Like, in Star Wars, they have before the Battle of Yavin and after the Battle of Yavin, and in our world we have AD and BC. Like in DC, it's about like when does Superman come about? What is before him and what's after him? But it's defined by Superman
Never a bad time for Superman to show up.
in real life.
Sure. Or in the movies or in the comics.
Yeah,
Real life. We need a real Superman.
we do.
Come on, David.
It I think a lot hinges, again, in real life, hinges on this movie being successful. There's a lot of stuff going on in the movie that, like, I think will appeal to people, but in the meta sense, in our hearts and souls, and the way that, like, humanity, I don't want to get like too deep about it, but like humanity works with storytelling, I
Hmm.
think having the right hero put forward matters.
Yeah.
And I hope that this movie is that. I don't know whether I've put so much pressure onto one superhero movie that I've ever ever like this, but I think that this is maybe the way we move forward with, because pop culture is culture and
Yeah.
culture is humanity, right? And so, like, the mythology that we partake in and we share is important to us. We know it's not real.
Right. But I feel like, what you were saying, like, I feel like it is kind of that deep. Like, if this movie does well, not necessarily like financially or like statistically or whatever, like if it does well and this Superman is, well loved and accepted, it's good for pop culture, but it's also good for our community. You know what I mean? Like it's more welcoming because you know what I mean? Like when I first started getting into comics and stuff like that, I had one version of Superman that was available to me that I didn't really see anything in it that it didn't do anything for me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
now we have a Superman that is a little more welcoming and a little more, empathetic and inviting for just the nerd community in general.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think it is that deep.
yeah.
Like,
I'm so glad that I got you on this episode. I
yeah,
when I first thought about this episode, I thought of you. Uh, Not only have you just been a good guest in the past, like your experiences with Superman, also as like a semi-recent convert,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I
That's why I
think
wanted
it
to do
matters.
this. Huh?
What I think it matters that the fact you have like this fresh new perspective, and also like this is Superman 101.
Yeah. I'm living it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
I'm reading a lot of these stories for the first time myself too. So, yeah, no, I was happy to do it because I like said at the beginning, I feel like our dynamic is really different when it comes to comic book perspectives on certain characters like this. So,
yeah.
yeah,
I
no, I'm happy.
also I also just think that, like, it's funny that, like, growing up being one of the only comic fans that I knew, and like connecting with people on like message boards and whatever, I was all about like being better than other people. and like it was a
Hmm.
big part of me. And I think that there are still people out there right now that their whole thing is like they read comics, they want to be better than everybody else,
Yeah.
and they, um, but I've realized over time that like comic fans can like come in and like start reading new comics, and that doesn't mean they're not a comic book fan. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it just means like we started at different points. Like I've been reading for a
Yeah.
long time, but I started off an asshole, became better,
I will say this too. When I was a little bit nervous when I posted a video on TikTok and I was like, "Hey, I've never read a Superman comic before. Like, I'm gonna read this one." And I was like, "God, they're gonna tear me apart." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they didn't. Superman fans have been hands down the most welcoming of like that the any kind of niche down character or team. Like, if you want to know where to start reading Superman, like there's probably hundreds of people doing what we're doing right now. You know what I mean? Like getting a list together and like making their little recommendation videos because the people who love Superman want to share him with other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, shout out Superman fans for being like, "Oh, dude, let me." I keep going back and like screenshotting comments from 2 years ago because I had hundreds of recommendations, and I was like, "Yes!" Like, I was terrified, but it worked out really well. So, if you're
I'm
nervous to
glad that
start
it worked out.
reading Superman, don't be nervous because I think comic fans in general just want to share their favorite characters with you. So, yeah,
It
just
depends.
ask. Right.
I think
Yeah.
there is something special about Superman. I do think.
I do. Yeah, I agree.
Superman's not even my number one, but I have
No.
such an avid respect for Superman.
Yeah.
It's different, Um, I'm excited. So thank you so much for coming on this and talking with me, talking with everybody out there. We had a lot of people jump in the chat, so thank you everybody out there for jumping in the chat. Most recently, Hunter Iggy saying that David Corden Sweat Superman is coming to Fortnite, which I think is amazing.
Heard.
What?
I heard about that. My son told me before I came out here.
It's I'll tell you one thing. I like Fortnite and I play Fortnite a little bit less now that I'm playing Marvel Rivals. But even if I didn't like Fortnite, I love that kids and different people can get introduced to these characters even if they've never read a comic. I do not hate on them for not reading a comic. When they're playing Marvel Rivals and they don't know who Emma Frost is, I do not care. They can love Emma Frost and hopefully get into Emma Frost stuff later. Same with David Corden Sweat Superman.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. All the
Yeah.
DC stuff that comes out in Fortnite, all the Marvel stuff that comes out in Fortnite, I'm not hating on it because
No, I think it's cool.
yeah, the kids get introduced to something like
Dude,
that.
I'm 34 and I went home after I watched the Thunderbolts and bought the Yelena and Winter Soldier skins. I was like, yes. I
Yeah,
love it. I
yeah,
love that they do stuff like that.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, David Cornsweat, that's my Superman.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also I have a feeling I'm gonna watch the movie, then I'm gonna keep in my head like, is this a movie that my mom would like? And I think it will be.
Okay.
But also the fact that my mom has a trend of crushing on Superman actors.
Good for her.
Like she loved Tom Welling back in the day.
Okay.
Like she'll bring up Tom Welling to this day. But I think that David Cornsweat will be her next new one. My mom has very rando taste, whether it's Denzel Washington or Paul Rudd or Tom Welling. These are all
All
different
handsome
people.
guys.
Yeah,
David's a handsome Superman.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So I get it. More power to her.
yeah.
I'll
So
stand with her on that for sure.
it's gonna be a fun time. So it'll be,
Yeah.
Hunter Iggy. I don't know whether I can go into this right now, not only for time but also for knowledge. But Hunter Iggy says, "What is your thoughts on James Gunn changing the truth, justice, and the human way?" I'm not sure I know enough about this, but the original saying of Superman used to be truth, justice, and the American way. Then they changed it to truth. They changed it to something else, truth, justice, and something. And I'm not sure enough about that, Hunter Iggy, but if you pay attention to the Keeg's TikTok, I will look into it and I'll make a video on it because I'm trying to make more Superman content on TikTok right now, gearing up towards the thing. So, Hunter Iggy, follow, first thing, follow Maggie, follow the Keeg Show. Maggie, where can people find you? What do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug before we get
Oh
going?
my goodness. Um, I don't have anything coming up because I'm just a busy girl, but you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, anywhere you can super kick. And also at Toy Vomit. That's my shop. But that's all I got going on.
With Toy Vomit, do you have like an online store that people can go to?
No, not right now.
Okay.
We're too busy in person
Yeah.
to keep up with online inventory. I wish we used to, but no.
What city is the shop in?
We're in Lexington, Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anyone's out there in Lexington, Kentucky, look up Toy Vomit.
See you there.
Yeah. Thank you, Maggie, so much for coming on. Thank you to everybody out there for watching and or listening. Shout out to Hunter Iggy says the prequel novel Welcome to Metropolis. There's a lot of tie-ins for the Superman movie. So, whether it's comics, whether it's kids books, they're doing a lot of like line of kids books for this, which is
That's
super
fun.
cool. Look into the toys. There's there's a lot of stuff coming out for the Superman movie. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, I meant to show you. I left it in another room. I
what
got a Superman Squishmallow the other day.
what is a squishmallow?
It's like a
Okay,
little stuffed Superman. He's cute.
yeah. Do they have one
Yeah.
for crypto?
Oh, I didn't see one for crypto.
Okay,
I don't know if they made one or not. If they do, I'll get it though.
okay. I need more crypto merch. I need to
Yeah, same.
get into that.
For sure.
Shout out to Hunter Iggy. Shout out to Darth Chaco. Shout out to Val. Shout out to Claude, Curly Insane Guy, and Joshua Ling and Vinyl Casket. And I think that's all the people I can see from our YouTube chat. If you're watching us live, you're watching us on youtube.com/The Keeg Show or maybe twitch.tv/The Keeg Show. We are pushing our YouTube more now that Twitch puts a limit on the videos that we can save. It is what it is, but youtube.com/The Keeg Show. Like, comment, subscribe, follow, write a review, wherever you're digesting us, whether it's live in our live stream or on our podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, wherever you're doing it, listening, watching live, whatever. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, and do all that stuff so we know you're out there and you're partaking in it, which is awesome. If you're on social media, you can follow the Keeg at The Keeg Show on TikTok and Instagram. Those are our two biggest ones, but we're also on Blue Sky and Threads and all of that. At The Keeg Show /The Keeg Show. Everywhere you can find The Keeg, we are there. If you want to follow us or check out our Amazon shop, amazon.com/shop/The Keeg Show. We have some Superman recommendations. I made some lists, some Supergirl lists, some Superman supporting cast, that sort of stuff. If you're looking for stuff to get, check out the shop. You don't have to get stuff there. It does support the Keeg if you do, but you can easily just look at those lists for recommendations and do what you want that way. But amazon.com/shop/The Keeg Show. Go to comicshoplocator.com, find a comic shop near you, support your local comic shops. They will have comics and people that will hopefully recommend things as well. So support your local comic shops, support your local public libraries, because they probably also have comics and also have Superman comics. And even if they didn't, support your local public libraries. That is pretty much it. This show is the Keeg Talks Superman 101. We also have Comic Talk every Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, and that sort of thing. We do a lot of shows. Just follow us on Instagram and TikTok. You can keep up to date with all that stuff. That's it. I'm running out of breath. Thank you, Maggie. Again, if you're not following Vegan Super Kick and Toy Vomit on social media, you should do that. Maggie, you're amazing. I miss having you on Comic Talk. You're too busy of a bee. And I mean BEE, not B asterisks. Would that be a bad way to go out on the show? You're too busy of a bitch. Like, what?
But I am, so it's fine. I would completely understand.
You're a
Yeah.
busy bee, as in a bumblebee. But it's always great to have you on and talk to you and connect and whatnot. So
Thanks for having me. It was a good time.
thanks.
Have fun talking Superman.
Yeah. Hopefully that was good for people who are looking to get into it. So
We'll see.
Thanks, Maggie. Once again, I am your host, Dimithri Pereira, and this has been the Keeg Talks Superman 101. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Super strong or super fast. Gotta beat the